this is a cautionary tale in that sense, that if you are not at ease with that part of yourself, then it's going to express itself in risky, dangerous ways. What does power mean? What does surrender mean? What is vulnerability? And they both have these questions in very different moments in their lives, and they meet each other and they sort of click into each other. And even though we might not approve of this affair, they are healing.
Hello, and welcome back to The Director's Cut, brought to you by the Directors Guild of America. In this episode, a CEO ensnares herself in a dangerous affair in director Halina Reijn's erotic thriller, Babygirl. The film follows a high-powered businesswoman who begins a taboo relationship with a much younger intern at her company. As the secret affair deepens, she puts her career and family on the line. In addition to Babygirl, Reijn's other directorial credits include the feature films Instinct and Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. Following a screening of the film at the DGA Theater in Los Angeles, Reijn spoke with director Spike Jonze about filming Babygirl. Listen on for their spoiler-filled conversation.
Hello, thank you guys for coming tonight. I know it's the holidays and everyone's must be busy, so thank you for that.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. You're all very spread out, but thank you for being here with us. Yay! Almost Christmas.
So Halina, this is one of my favorite movies of the year. I told you this when I saw it a few months ago. I'll just sing her praise for a minute. She's done 3 movies now. I don't know. The first movie is hard to see. It's called Instinct, but if you can track it down, it's incredible. Her second movie is Bodies, 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 which is also incredible. Woo! Yay! And then Babygirl. And all of the films are pitch perfect for the tone they are. And the tone is the 3 of them are so different. How do you approach tone?
Oh, I love that question. So I think with Bodies and with Babygirl, I had a very specific tone in mind. With Instinct, it was my very first movie. I used to be an actress, so very late in life, I changed professions. I think with Instinct, I was a little bit less aware of humor as kind of a weapon, if you will, or a means to seduce an audience to come with us into the story. But with Bodies, 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 I thought absurdism would be the best tone for that, because we decided there was no killer and everybody ends up dead just, by toxic group behavior, really. And for this, I was convinced of what I thought. I want to make a comedy of manners more than a sexual thriller. I know that it's marketed as a sexual thriller. But I find it more a comedy of manners, a dark comedy. And
comedy of manners?
Yeah, like in the sense that it's like this kind of like exploration of power and control and surrender. And so I thought the tone had to be all about performance. The whole thing. So it starts with a fake orgasm. It ends with a real orgasm. But of course, it's not real because it's not a documentary. But I constantly want to ask that question. What is fake? What is real? Because for me, the main character, and I think a lot of women, but also men and any person can have this feeling that you have to be the perfect mother and the perfect wife and the perfect leader, and that you're constantly performing and you forget to just be who you want to be or to be your authentic self, or you don't even know whatever that is. And so we see this woman who's pleasing everyone and forgets to just be at ease with the beast inside herself. And so as long as she's not at ease with the beast, she keeps performing, doing an apron, wearing an apron, being the good leader, being this and that. And then when she meets Samuel, they kind of go into this abstract space where they perform things for each other, but they also become themselves. And I literally wanted to show that in how they act constantly through the whole movie. So I said I want a style, a tone, where you kind of like are different layers of what being yourself is. So going in and out of character almost. So say, get on your knees. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. Sorry. I'm so sorry. So that kind of like shift between emotions. That is what I was looking for.
Yeah, I mean, I think a mutual friend of ours described the movie. He saw it this week, and he said it's an innocent movie masquerading as the opposite. And I think I love what he said about it. Because I think it's so human on the most tender way, and yet it masquerades as, obviously, as you said, it's they're marketing it as a sexual thriller. But to me, it's so moving. Like, kind of from the moment where her assistant comes to talk to her in the kitchen, and then she's kind of fighting it, and then she submits at the end and kind of can't even make eye contact and just says, okay. And then from there on, I just did not expect it to be so, and yeah. And did anyone else find it emotional? Am I the only person? Okay, thank you. Of course. What if I was the only person? And you're weird, man. But it does have such humanity, and I feel like the movie, like, the tone of it is your personality in so many ways, in terms of the largeness of the way you see the world and the empathy in which you see the world. And I think that this movie just has empathy for every character in it, which is, I was amazed that you actually were able to do that. But can you talk about that?
Yeah, I think so. Of course, I set out to, in the end, make it incredibly human and ambiguous, therefore, because I feel that all humans are ambiguous and we are all layered and complex and full of duality. Life is not a cartoon. It's not a Walt Disney movie. So I wanted to end it very, very real and bring sort of radical honesty onto the screen. But to get there, I thought it would be very fun to set it up in a genre way. The same that we do with Bodies, where we play with the horror genre. So we kind of say, we're going to do a classical horror movie where all these people are going to die and there's going to be a killer. And then it turns out to be something else. And I wanted on purpose to sort of use my own fascination with camp and seduction and a big Hollywood movie and all of these things that I love. I wanted to sort of use them and then play with the expectation of the audience and my own expectation with tension. So we're setting it up as if maybe Harris Dickinson is going to kill somebody, like Fatal Attraction. So we're constantly playing with these 90s thrillers. And sometimes I mirror exactly scenes from 9.5 Weeks. I don't know if people know that movie, but Kim Basinger dances there to Take Your Head Off from Joe Cocker, and Mickey Rourke sits in a chair and watching her. So we're constantly swapping genders and playing with power and control and expectation. And then in the end, when they fight, the men are fighting just like in an archetypical movie, but then they talk to each other. And the moment that Antonio Banderas really expresses his sadness is with his biggest, enemy, the young man. But I watch a lot of UFC. I always say KFC fights, but it's UFC fights. And I love how, for me, maybe this is controversial to say, but they are very erotic for me, because these men are so close and sometimes they're so tired and they just lean against each other and they're just breathing, and it's super animalistic. And then I asked some of these fighters, of course, not in the way that I'm contextualizing it now, but they did say that they felt it is that's not, if you have a good fight, that there's intimacy, that there's actual bond and respect. And that's what I felt like. I felt that is human, to then have that emotion together, and her walking in with the peas and everything. And they kind of, like, with the three of them, have a conversation. And I thought, for me, that is where real humanity comes into play. And we don't get kind of guided by the filmmaker. This is what you need to feel. This is a bad guy. This is a good guy. No, we are left with our own imagination and our own morality. And that can be uncomfortable because we don't punish anybody, even though, of course, things happen in this movie that are not morally good. But in life, that also happens.
She did quote mark for good. The moment where Harris Dickinson says, that's a dated idea, and then he has a panic attack.
There's nothing he can do. Like, the only thing that he has left is to almost get a heart attack, because it's figuratively death, right? And what I also love about life, and also, of course, struggle with, but is the fact that it goes in cycles. And I remember when I was a young actress and I was with a theater company, and these older actresses were really treating me pretty badly, and they were always like, well, you don't know that. And I was like, I'm never going to be that. I'm never going to be like them. I'm always going to be like cool to younger actresses. Cut to, I'm 35 and I'm like, do you even know? And So I just think it's so moving. We're all, we're going to have to make place for the next generation. And they look at things. My main character, Romy, thinks she's a feminist, but she's a dinosaur. She doesn't really know what she's doing. And this young assistant keeps asking for a promotion. And she says, of course, yeah, fine, great. But she doesn't really listen to her. And I just think it's also very human, and you kind of have to give the torch to the next generation. And sometimes that's hard. So I love that moment where the way Harris plays that. That's a dated idea. You're wrong. He just says to Antonio Banderas. And I was laughing when we were shooting it because it was so real in a way. Because here you have this wonderful actor that used to be a sexual icon and he's incredibly masculine and so accomplished. And then this very young actor that is a sort of representation of a new generation that thinks about all these things in such a different way. And I admire them for it, but I can't always live it. I wish I could.
Well, yeah. I mean, I remember talking to you about this because Bodies obviously is this young generation. And it's both sort of satirizing them, but much more empathetically humanizing them. And I think that, what is your view of the youth and the future and how they're going to save us?
I'm very hopeful about it. Of course, I also make fun of it with bodies, but with them, I hope that comes across. And also in this movie, we're making fun of everything and every character, and we're also in love with every character. Like my DP Jasper Wolf, who's also from the Netherlands, always says every character for us is a hero. No matter what, even if he does really wrong things, we always film and approach them as heroes.
Who said that to you?
Jasper, my DP, and your DP sometimes.
I love him.
So that is an amazing way of thinking about it, I think. So for me, all characters are as human as the other, but I do think I was very inspired by Bodies by getting to know that generation. And I felt sometimes, I thought I was an incredible feminist. I was raised by radical hippies, a radical feminist. So I had this whole idea of myself of being completely liberated. And through them, I learned that I wasn't at all, and that I had so much to learn and so much to educate myself. And then I thought it would be amazing in this movie about sexuality and control and power to really show that the youth, as you say, have these really interesting new ideas that are refreshing. And I thought it would also be funny that during the exploration of their kink, that also becomes a part of the sexual dynamic, where Harris literally threatens her and says, I can make one phone call and you lose everything, because you can think that you're the CEO of this company, but I have more power over you because I can cancel you. Does that turn you on when I say that? I just love that, to bring awareness also as a filmmaker to all the different elements of these themes. Like, we know we live in a time of consent, and I wanted to sort of talk about it, look at it, and hopefully provoke discussion and hopefully have conversations afterwards, it's because for me, it's important to keep shining light on the fact that even though we are civilized and even though we hope that we are more equal now and that we have more respect for each other now, we are still also animalistic. And as long as we keep denying that is for me more dangerous than to talk about it, create stories about it, make paintings about it, and talk to each other about it. Because we will never be humans, maybe one monk that is meditating all day long on a mountain. But the rest of us, we are living on this planet and we will make mistakes. And if we suppress our inner beasts, it's going to end up like that.
I can imagine this just being a very controversial movie in terms of not in some like huge, controversy way, but in that way that like it's going to have very divided opinions and reactions because you're hitting pretty deep into our deepest parts of ourselves, of our shame, our denial, our repression, our fears, and our the things that the yearning for certain intimacies and the shame of that. And I would imagine that the reactions must be so vast from. I mean, we were just talking briefly about it, and but I can imagine, that it's going to scare people. Is that true?
Yes, I think so. It's of course interesting. I don't know how you experience that, but also having been a stage actress, that it's really hard for people to actually be bluntly honest to your face. So I don't, of course, hear a lot of people who dare to tell me what they really think face to face, just because people are polite, which is also a great thing.
Anybody
wants to get up and like scream at me? Please, no. But of course, there's a lot written about the movie at the moment. And I was actually surprised by when I finished the movie, I thought, oh my God, how are people in America especially going to react? But so in the beginning, I thought the reactions were overwhelmingly warm and open. And I still think that. And sometimes there's, of course, opinion pieces and people who find it hard to see a woman degrade herself like that. And is that then sexual liberation? That's, of course, not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that even if she wanted to dress up like a giraffe or a clown, as long as she would do that in a space where she asks for consent and it's respectful and she doesn't hurt others, there's nothing wrong with it. My point is, this is a cautionary tale in that sense, that if you are not at ease with that part of yourself that is a woman with sexual desire, if you don't dare to ask your partner for what you really want and need, except under a sheet whispering, like, it's not really truly having a real conversation, then it's going to express itself in risky, dangerous ways. And I'm also saying at the same time, here's two people, because Samuel is just as much in a crisis as she is. He's taking his first steps as a man and is wondering, who am I as a man? Who am I allowed to be as a man? What does power mean? What does surrender mean? What is vulnerability? And they both have these questions in very different moments in their lives, and they meet each other and they sort of click into each other. And even though we might not approve of this affair, they are healing. And I think that is what makes life so damn hard, but also so beautiful, is that things are never just one thing. It's complex, it's layered. And that's what I'm trying to say with the movie. And some people want to be guided more and they need morality. And I like to not give that. I like people to try to provoke a conversation and let everybody have their own imagination and their own experiences and decide for themselves which characters they love and which they don't. And hopefully they love all of them.
I loved all of them.
Me too.
I didn't mean to say a lot of people are going to be scared of it, but there will be people. But also there's a lot. Everyone I know that saw it. That first screening. There's a screening at the beginning of September, right after she got back from Venice, and it was at CA, and the room was packed, and everybody was like, "I need to see that movie." And then everyone I talked to afterwards was like elated, like sort of so moved, opened up, inspired, touched. And yeah, so I think that the movie has something building around it right now, which is really exciting. And I think important in terms of having, as you said, the conversation around, these things and these parts of ourselves that we need to embrace.
Yes. And I think, of course, it's also funny. I don't know if anybody relates to that, but when I'm writing in my little apartment, I'm so bold and I'm like, I'm going to make a movie that will start conversations. And then when you bring it into the world and it is now coming out on Christmas Day, I'm like, I don't want to make a movie that starts any conversations. I want to make a movie that everyone loves. I want to make a cartoon where, so I'm not as courageous often as the movie. I feel, of course, when Nicole Kidman says to Antonio Banderas, I want to be normal. I want to be the woman you like. I want to be what you like. That's me. That's literally me. I'm like, I wish I was normal. I wish I could. But this is my most honest truth, is this movie. And for me, I was raised in a way to think that if you make it really personal, if you bring radical honesty to it, you can maybe connect to other people. So that's what I'm trying to do. But then, of course, at the same time, it's hard when somebody then says, I don't like it. You're like,
There's so much to talk about in terms of the themes and what's behind it, but I also think technically your filmmaking is impeccable. It's like there's not a mistake, there's not a flaw. That's like the photography, because is so razor sharp to me. Like it's when it's handheld, when it's locked off, and the music is pitch perfect. I don't know. I think that there's so many of those different things I want to talk about, but coming from as an actor, obviously your performances are incredible. And actually one thing that Nicole Kidman said at this Q&A was that Halina could play any of the parts, which I know from things we've talked about, like where you start doing doing all the different characters. And so the acting I expect to be of that level. But in terms of all the difference between theater and film, tell me about how you got to this in terms of the technical aspect.
I think for me, I have to always, since I come from that chaotic childhood, I like to organize and structure everything very, very much. I'm a total control freak. So that within that very solid structure, there can be freedom. So I have to orchestrate the chaos. I am very, very deeply. So preparing is everything for me. And Jasper Wolf, my DP, and I are very much creative partners from the start. And for me, I wrote like a paper in the beginning that later became a PowerPoint presentation that I kept doing for everyone and also to myself, really, to create clarity. And for me, there was a language in everything we did that was either something belonged to the beast or it belonged to the civilized. So because the movie is, of course, about that, like we see this woman that thinks she has total control. If she does enough Botox, ice baths, oxygen chambers, and therapy, she can become this perfect creature, is what she seems to think. And she has to learn to let her beast exist and talk to it and not deny it. And so for instance, as far as the camera, I said that I wanted 2 styles. So one is the handheld, where Jasper actually operates the camera himself. It's on his shoulder and he's with the actors and moving around with them. And the other one are the overhead shots, the drone shots, the robots, if you will, the machine, that side to the movie. But that is also expressed in all the other things. So in the office versus the cheap hotel room where there's stains on the floor and everything is red and it's almost like a womb and it feels very sensual. So we were constantly thinking about everything in that sense. And that makes it like a child's drawing to me. I need total clarity and to always go back to my PowerPoint presentation if I kind of lose sight or if people start to debate things with me where I'm like, I intuitively feel that we're now losing our path. And then I go back to my intention and what I wanted to do. And I have all my pictures in that PowerPoint presentation. It started with an explanation of the orgasm gap. And I wanted to do it for the full crew, but they said to me that we didn't even hire the full crew yet. So in the Netherlands, I would do it that way, but here you can't because some of the people come later. But so we did it for as many people as I could gather. And I do that also from my childhood in communes and coming from the theater, that I want to collaborate. Everybody needs to feel the same responsibility, but also therefore needs to feel involved and know why are we doing this and ask questions. And so I think that was very helpful to me as far as filmmaking.
That's really smart. Yeah. Probably we have a lot of directors in here that you're asked 1,000 questions a day, and to be able to go back to you're kind of lost in a day a lot of times and just be like, okay, what's this line about? What's the scene about? What's the film about? And having that's really smart.
Sorry, no, go ahead.
Well, just how did the music is also incredible, and can you tell me, who was the composer?
Cristobal. He's also the composer of The White Lotus.
Yeah,
sometimes maybe recognize a little bit the core of the style. Yeah, so he came on board with us a long time before we started shooting, and I explained to him all of this. I also did that presentation for him, and I think the most important thing with the score for me was that even though they blackmail each other, like for instance in the car where they really fight and he gets angry and it seems the stakes are so high and she could lose everything, I still wanted the music to always signal to the audience, this is a game. This is sensual. Even though, again, that might not be something you want to morally agree with, but the kink is the fact that she can lose everything. She gets aroused by the fact that she puts everything on red. And why? Because she's in a midlife crisis. She sees death on the horizon. She says the avalanche is coming. And when Antonio says, Hedda Gabler is not about desire. Hedda Gabler is about suicide. And he, of course, explains to the audience in the way you think this is a sexy movie that you're going to watch. No, this is a movie about a woman who wants to destroy everything in order to be reborn. And this is something that everybody can relate to in different crises in our life. And I wanted Cristobal to create music that would always signal that in a playful way. So say, okay, we're fighting now. And it seems like they are both like scared to death, but in a way, they're also turning each other on. And so for me, the sexuality is existential, and it really goes into an area that is risky, and she really needs real danger because she has a self-destructive tendency because she just doesn't know how to change her life into a way where she can really look at her own behavior and really say, I am now closer to my authentic self instead of like becoming what society wants me to be.
Well done.
Am I going into too heavy territories right
that's
now?
Cool.
Okay.
No, I definitely that's a great way to look sort of like again with the book to have like a guiding principle in the music that and what about in terms of, I don't know how many people here know Halina was a internationally celebrated actress of stage who worked with this very famous Dutch director, and they would do like 8-hour versions of Hamlet on stage, and these very radical theater interpretations. And I don't know, I'm not sure if I'm saying it right, but
no, you're saying everything right. Yeah, it's called, he's called Ivo van Hoven, and we had a big theater company. We also played a lot here in America. And we did all these plays, and I think because everybody thinks, and that is true, that I'm very much inspired by the sexual thrillers of the 90s, and I am, but I'm mostly inspired by all these roles that I was playing. They are in me. We have a repertory system that means that you do Hedda Gabler for 15 years, you do Ophelia for 10 years, you do the Taming of the Shrew for almost 20 years. So these characters are sort of possessing me, and I love them, but all of them almost died. So they are all trying to liberate themselves. Look at Ophelia, but within 5 scenes, she goes from virgin to psychotic to drowning herself in some river, and all of them. And I was like, okay, so a free woman is a dead woman. What the fuck is that? And so I started to just have these fantasies in the wings, like what do I want to do myself that kind of like, because I love the themes of all of those roles, and all of them are about control, violence, sexuality, the bigger themes of life, basically. And so that is what inspired me most to write this, to see a woman going through the same things that Hedda Gabler goes through, but then actually she stays alive when after she liberates herself, she doesn't shoot herself, in the head.
Progress.
Yeah, there's a little bit of progress. Yeah, exactly. But they are my real educators. Shakespeare, Ibsen, O'Neill, because I feel like if they are inside you, if you play Hedda Gabler so many times, and of course these plays have proven themselves, right? They've survived time. They really work. So as far as stories writing, I really learned that from all those old men that teach me that. And I'm very grateful for that, but I want to give it my own little twist.
Yeah. This one feels like it's a forever, like even though it feels very timely in terms of where we are at this moment, it's also like kind of eternal in terms of the struggle between being civilized and being an animal. And does anyone have any questions? I know we're not supposed to, but I think it's important. How many shooting days?
We had 34.
Wow.
34. It was quite rough, I thought, because we had so many locations in New York, and I was used to doing bodies, and instinct. That was all very much bodies, of course, literally in one location, and instinct on purpose because it was my first film I wrote, very small. So we just had like 4 locations. So this was intense, very intense. I loved it, but I was like, it was a lot.
Would you share the PowerPoint?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. I shared it with this person who wrote a profile on me for the New Yorker, and everybody said, don't share it. Don't let anybody look in your kitchen. I'm like, everybody can look in my kitchen. Yeah. I don't mind at all. I'll send it. No, I can send it to you personally.
Let's put it on the DGA website, and then in the podcast we can link to it. How about that?
Yes.
Sam?
Of course. Okay, she's not here right now because we're illegally doing this. Yes.
Okay. Anyone? Yes. How did you work with the wardrobe department?
Yeah, they are called Kurt and Bart. They only go with their first names, which I love. They're an amazing duo. They do very big movies and sometimes a small movie, and I had to really audition for them. I had to convince them, beg them, everything. Same as with everything else. So we talk constantly about the civilized, the robotic, the part where she dresses up as almost like a harness. And then slowly she becomes more and more herself, or she's wearing jeans and like this soft sweater. And I always show them endless pictures of Paris, Texas, of the famous sweater. I'm always like, this sweater, pink.
Poncho at the end is really perfect.
I mean, that whole movie, the colors.
I'm the poncho.
Oh, her poncho, you mean? Yeah. Yes, exactly. No, I think they're incredibly talented, those two. So I also give them a lot of freedom. But I wanted her not to present as a businessman. I really thought it was incredibly important that her way of being a CEO was still very feminine. I thought that was because she is obsessed with really being a normal woman coming from a radical background, just like myself, and grew up in communes and cults. And you see some of these flashes during the EMDR therapy. So I wanted her wardrobe to really be like a white picket fence, everything that is not a commune, the opposite of her whole life is a manifestation of this is not a commune. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, with the hat. How did this cast come together, and how much rehearsal did you have, if any?
So Nicole approached me after Instinct. She managed to see it, which is is very interesting. She somehow finds women all over the world and she wants to work with them. So I already worked with her on a project that she handed to me to do a rewrite of. But then after Bodies, I was so sure that I wanted to try to create something myself. So I called her shaking with nerves and I said, I'm going to isolate and write this thing. But she was like, yeah, of course, great. So she always did supportive and kept asking me about it. And so she read a very early draft and then immediately said, I want to do that. So that was amazing. And then the next day I woke up in a panic attack because I said, but who's going to play opposite her? Because she's so iconic. And then that week I accidentally went to see Triangle of Sadness, the premiere in New York. And I thought, oh my God, who is that creature? And then I saw Triangle of Sadness and I just thought he's technically so good and he's incredibly funny, which is very important for this role. And he has this almost old-fashioned masculinity combined with this ability to become this little boy within a second. And so then I had to really convince him, by the way. He was like, what? Like it was... and then we got him, which was amazing. And then A24, because I told A24, I said, I want a man in the role of Jacob that is very handsome, attractive, masculine, that it's never going to be about, he cannot dominate her. Of course he cannot dominate her. He should be able to dominate her, but it's her problem. She's not honest with herself, therefore not with him. So we need someone who's like a sex symbol. And then they said, Antonio Banderas. And I said, are you insane? He's never going to do it. Like, I'm a European. I know these kind of men. And we sent him a script and he was like, I'm in. I want to support this story. I want to support Nicole. And he said it's so important that we talk about this and that. So that's how it came about. And Sophie Wilde, I found in a movie called Talk to Me, which is an amazing horror movie that I was just in awe of her.
Yeah, wait, who was in Talk to Me?
Sophie Wilde, who plays Esme.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
Well, we got the please wrap up sign. So thank you all for coming. And Halina,
thank you
congratulations.
So much for coming. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to another DGA Q&A. The Director's Cut is available wherever you listen to podcasts. And please share, subscribe, rate, and review. We'd love to hear your feedback, and you can help fellow film buffs find the show. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time. This podcast is produced by the Directors Guild of America.